Hey, welcome back, folks, to Short Vol Show Live. My name is David Lincoln, and we're on the weekend edition. I wanted to talk about a couple things, but first of all, I want to talk about Aurora earnings. So early last week, I did get long Aurora. I bought 3,000 shares, paid $360. Then it proceeded to go to $385, at which point I sold out my 3,000 shares. Then it returned back down to $360. You can see that those little blips right behind my head here. So it's up, down, blah, blah, blah. Then I had no position. Oh, I'm sorry. I bought it at 360, sold it at 385, bought it again, paid 360, went back up to 375, and like a fool, I didn't sell it. It went back down to 360, and I scratched my trade. So up to this point, I did one nice flip for $900, bought it again, and scratched it. Then no position. Day before earnings, the thing pukes down. It got down to like 330 something, and I ended up buying it, paying on Friday, I believe. Well, let's see. Before earnings, I bought it, and I ended up immediately selling it out like 20 minutes later for like $160 loser. And I came into earnings, and my position coming into earnings, instead of being long it, I actually was short it via these puts. I bought these 22 NOV puts. I bought the 3 puts for I paid 22 cents for the 3 puts. So coming to earnings, I was short like 200 deltas. It tanked on earnings, so I made a little bit on that. Earnings came out after the close, and that day at like 7 at night, I paid $290 for some shares of the underlying to kind of hedge some of those puts. Then the next morning, stock was once again around 290, and I just sold out my position. I sold out my puts. I sold out my stock for like basically a scratch on the whole thing. And then later in the day, stock started rallying. It got up to $3, and I actually went ahead and I paid like $302. Paid $302 for 3,000 shares, and it went against me for 30 cents, which is like a $900 loser. And that's how we left trade on Friday, with my whole work for the last week ending up in a scratch. And I went out long 3,000 shares of ACB. So the whole thing's been a scratch. Maybe I'm better off than some, worse off than others. Didn't lose any money, but didn't make any money. And I was watching somebody who is like an authority on MJ stocks. And, it's just been a nightmare year for MJ stocks. And I watched this guy who's supposed to be an authority, and he doesn't give me any information. He's just a cheerleader. It's frustrating having people that are always just cheerleaders. And you get this a lot on StockTwits, where like stock goes against them, and they're like, oh, wow, well, stock went against me, but it's still an awesome stock, and I'm just going to buy more down here. I wish I had more money to just buy more and more and more, and they just can't let go. If you're an expert on MJ stocks, I'd rather have some analysis from you than just cheerleading and saying, well, the market's clearly wrong and I'm right and this thing's just tanking. We need some analysis. And my analysis of the situation is something's rotten in MJ land and has been for some time now. Now, I'm coming from the state of Massachusetts, where vaping was made illegal a couple months ago. I know vaping is part of a lot of these companies' business plans, is to have a kind of vehicle for cannabis using some sort of vaping system. So having it illegal in Massachusetts doesn't help the situation, of course. Obviously, this stuff is still federally legal in the United States. These are Canadian companies. There's been a bunch of headwinds for these companies, I know, along the way. But, it's just been a nightmare bloodbath. And is this ever going to turn around, or is this industry just going to kind of sputter out and just be this sort of craft type business? Because the excitement and the enthusiasm are falling apart. And yes, there's going to be you can come online and find forums with these cheerleaders for this stuff, but that's true for anything. Whatever your stock is, if you go on StockTwits, there's going to be some people on the thread who are like true believers. But I'm not interested in true belief. I'm interested in making money, and the MJ area doesn't seem to be a place to make money in right now. And I don't know when that's going to change, but until it changes, I would stay away if I were you from that area. Conversely, the short vol trade has been a place to make money for a while now, and fortunately, my losses in ACB on Friday were offset by gains in VXX. And I did appear on the show, on the Volatility View show, and I did mention that I've switched positions to a VXX position, so let me just update you on that. Yeah, I got out of the UVXY thing and went and just tried to switch over to VXX. It's essentially the same thing. I mean, I'm short volatility via put spreads. In VXX, the put spreads, it's the same month as I was on in UVXY. December, it expires 20 December. And similar kind of strikes. I'm long the 2018 put spread. So essentially that means I want it below 18 on expiration. This thing did roll down 78 cents on Friday to 17.40. So, great. Awesome. If you look at the screen, you can see without the numbers there that I do have a small condor on, but it's kind of like very small. If I switch the screen so you can see the numbers, you'll see that, yeah, I'm long 48 put spreads and I'm short 2 of the 16-14 put spread. So very small, sort of just messing around with a 1-lot or 2-lot, trading in and out of it there. But essentially just still short volatility here. If we do look at VIX term structure, you can see that it is just in an extreme shape right now. I would encourage you to look out past the first 2 months of futures because expiration is this Wednesday, and this relationship between December and Jan futures is going to come online and be the most important thing. This Nova future is almost completely out of the equation. Wouldn't pay too much attention to that. We can see the Nova contango is 16%, but the second and third month contango is 10%. Now that's, over the last 3 or 4 expiration cycles, the last couple of days, you would see the M1 and M2 in contango by over 10% at this time in the cycle. But the new thing now is the second to third month contango of over 10%. We haven't seen that in the last 6 months at all. Usually what we've seen is there being contango between the first and second month, but it being almost flat or being at least less than 5% between month 2 and month 3 at this time in the cycle. So this contango chart really has steepened and picked up steam, and it is real there. There is real heavy decay here. Now, of course, as we move lower in the VIX, there becomes more and more room for a pop to the upside, but that being paired with this increase in contango, it's really just it makes sense why it would be priced this way. They don't want to bring the futures way, way down. But at the same time, as long as nothing happens, the stuff is decaying by, between 75 cents and a point now per week. So, really heavy decay we're looking at here. And we just seem to be locked into this rally, and this is one of these places where people try to pick the top in the market, and this is why fund managers underperform the major indices. This is why individual traders don't make money, because they try to pick the top here. They don't stay fully invested, and there's these big rallies, and people are like, oh well, the market's already high, I'm going to get out, and they miss these rallies here, and they don't end up performing as well as the indices. So the wise investors stay fully invested and participate, but there's people, and you're going to hear them all the time, trying to pick the top. Now, the articles coming out that's saying that we're coming into a recession and this is the top of the market have quieted in the last week or two. Now, you can take that to mean anything you want. To me, it does make me a little bit more fearful when people stop talking about, oh, we're going to crash. the signs like, oh, we're going to crash, have quieted in the last couple weeks. That due, partially just to the fact that we've been rallying like crazy. But as there's less and less calls like for, oh, we're going to crash, it does make me a little bit more nervous. So, take your profits a little bit. Don't have all your money on the table on this short, but this short trade continues to work here. And if you're putting put spreads like this where you have a strike, as we move away from that strike, as these things move lower and lower, for example, in my case from 18 level, it means you can absorb a bigger and bigger spike without these spreads, going out of the money essentially. So, but be careful out there. I would take money off the table as you can. You don't want to be fully into any of this stuff. You never want to be fully into any of this stuff, but the short vol trade continues to work for us, and it's a beautiful thing. Thanks for all the new viewers out there. I know I've gotten some new viewers. It was fun going on the Volatility View show. If you didn't catch that, you can go to optionsinsider.com, and I think they usually broadcast the show starting the Monday after. So Option Insider. Now, just to give you background on this, Options Insider, when I go on that show, we are all ex-CBOE market makers. So the two guys that are usually the guests there, Andrew and Mark, are both, they and I, we all worked for the same company at one point back in the day. And so we all know each other. So it's kind of fun to get back and just talk some smack and talk options with these guys. And I end up going on there every once in a while. But we'll see what this week ahead brings for the market. Probably like you, I've been watching a little bit of this like impeachment stuff on TV. It's really boring. I try to have a conversation with people about this stuff, but it's so easy to just spout out the party line. Like I could be like a Twitter, like a MAGA Twitter guy, or I could be a liberal Twitter guy, and I could spout out the party line for either party, but it's really boring. I'll tell you what's harder is if you are a Democrat to go and pick any conservative idea that you might agree with, and if you're a conservative, look out into the liberal world and say, what are things that I can live with here? Is there anything I can live with here? And what we need more of is for people to try to come together, try to get some consensus. You're never going to have a consensus on everything, but maybe we can have consensus on something, or maybe we can say, well, you guys may have a little bit of a point here, or maybe whether I'm conservative or liberal, maybe we went overboard on this particular thing. We need to find some way for people to come together, and we need to have some sort of objective viewpoint instead of just these narratives that are so far apart from each other all the time. It seems that if you watch MSNBC or Fox News, some of the stuff both those places say is just so utterly ridiculous. And it's I know that there's more people than it, the TV would have you believe that everybody is in an extreme of one side or the other. And I know that most people are more in the middle to some extent, or at least can be reasonable to some extent. And there's just no news outlets that have reasonable opinions and stuff anymore. It's amazing. And that is the reason why we try to keep off of, I'm involved with several Facebook groups, and we try to keep the partisan stuff out of the Facebook groups because it's boring in the end. It's boring. I can predict what the Young Turks is going to say on any news story. I can predict what Fox News is going to say on any news story. It's boring. We need to have news and current events that is not just this predictable, like, where does this fit into the narrative? Where does this fit into the rah-rah, let's fire people up, let's get people mad at the other people, and that stuff is just, it dominates everything, and I don't want it to, I want to be a source of information that's distinct from that. So anyway, we'll see what happens moving forward as far as these volatility ETPs. But right now we're on a beautiful move down for them as volatility has moved lower. This stuff is also in steep contango. So we've seen these take out the lows several times recently, and it seems like that's going to continue. No, we're going to spike at some point. I don't know when it is, but for now, I'm still short this stuff, and it's working. So awesome. All right. Check out Joe Rogan podcast. He's got some great stuff on there, and he is a voice that seems a little bit more reasonable and isn't just speaking out talking points from one party or another, because that stuff gets so tiring. It really does. All right, thanks for watching, folks, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will be back with you probably Tuesday morning. You'll hear from me again. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.